My name is Pierce. Detective John Pierce, if you care for formality. I've spent most of my years digging through rot, scraping the underbelly of cities, finding what others refuse to see. I've walked alleys that reek of stale blood and stood in parlors that echo with screams long since faded. But even I thought I'd earned a break, just one. So when the invitation came, an old colleague's offer of a quiet weekend on a private island off the northern coast, I said yes. Maybe I was tired, maybe I was foolish, but I packed light, wore linen instead of wool, and boarded the small ferry to Varnamile with the vague hope that the only thing I'd be investigating would be the cocktail menu. The island was small, no more than a crooked horseshoe of cliffs and forest, with a main house at the center, white stone walls, ivy-choked, and a slate roof weathered by storms. My host, Professor Caldereau, greeted me at the dock. I hadn't seen him since the Sheffield Symposium on Ritual Crimes. He looked thinner, his handshake colder than I remembered. "Still chasing monsters, Pierce?" he asked with a tired grin. "Only the ones who don't bleed," I replied. The house smelled of old paper and ocean salt. A few other guests had arrived before me, academics mostly, colleagues of Calder's from the anthropology department. There was Dr. Mira Lewin, a woman with pale eyes and a voice like wind through trees, Edward Voss, a taciturn linguist who seemed more shadow than man, and a pair of young research assistants, Michael and Clara, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Dinner was served just before dusk, fresh fish, salted greens, and wine that tasted too expensive for the table it was served on. Calder spoke of isolation, of quiet research, of the ruins at the island's heart. Pre-Anglo ritual grounds, he claimed. Older than the church, older than the myths. I nodded, sipped my drink, and told myself I was on vacation. That night, the wind howled like it had something to say. I couldn't sleep. The house creaked and shifted, as if it too were dreaming restless dreams. Around midnight I took a walk. The hallways were dark, only a faint glimmer of moonlight painted the floors silver. I passed closed doors, listened to silence, reached the library and stood there for a while, watching shadows tremble between the books. Then I heard it, a scream, sharp, female, torn from somewhere outside. I ran, down the hall, out the door, across wet grass into the black woods. The moon lit just enough to avoid the trees. The air was freezing. My breath came out like smoke. I followed the sound, boots sinking into loam, past the stone path that led to the ruins. That's where I found her, Clara, or what was left of her. She was lying at the base of a standing stone, arms stretched out unnaturally, face frozen in a scream. Her eyes were wide open, but there was no life behind them. Her skin was gray, lips blackened, and carved into her chest, shallow but deliberate, was a spiral. Old, familiar. I'd seen it once before. A ritual mark used by a defunct coastal cult, long believed dead. The sign of the hollow spiral. Devotees of silence, worshippers of emptiness. It was myth, nothing more than the kind of story passed around crime scenes to keep junior investigators up at night. Except here it was, fresh, precise, real. I didn't scream. I just turned around and went back. By the time I reached the main house, the others had gathered. Lewin was crying. Voss stood by the fireplace, stone-faced. Michael looked pale, shivering. Calder met my eyes. "What happened?" he asked. "She's dead," I said. "Clara. At the ruins. And someone put her there on purpose." The room fell into a silence thick enough to suffocate. Calder looked stricken. Lewin covered her mouth. Michael slumped into a chair and stared at the floor. "She was just going for a walk," he mumbled. "She said she couldn't sleep." "You let her go alone?" I asked. He looked up sharply. "We weren't joined at the hip, detective." "Fair enough." But his hands were trembling. "I want everyone to stay in the house," I said. "Lock the doors, close the windows. Whatever happened out there wasn't an accident, and it damn well wasn't random." "You think someone here did it?" Lewin whispered. "I think there are 7 of us on an island with no signal, no authorities, and one of us is already dead. I don't believe in coincidences." I went back to the ruins at dawn. The fog was thick, clinging to the ground like cobwebs. The stones, 5 in a wide circle, one central monolith, were ancient, cracked and worn smooth by centuries of storms. The ground was disturbed around the altar stone, drag marks, symbols, more spirals, but also footprints, bare, leading away into the forest, then vanishing, like they'd never been there. I took photos, sketched the pattern into my notebook, and returned. By then, Clara's body had been brought inside and placed in one of the guest rooms, covered with a white sheet. Lewin had found an old emergency radio in the cellar, but it hissed and popped uselessly. Calder tried to rig a signal booster from parts in his study, but the wind on the island was too strong. No one was coming. Not today. I've seen that spiral before, I told Calder quietly. He raised an eyebrow. Case in Dungeness. 8 years ago. A small sect living underground said they could hear the silence calling to them. Used spirals to ward off the noise of the world. They were obsessed with purification. One survivor. The rest had taken vows. You think this is connected? He asked. I think someone on this island knows more than they're saying. That night, the house groaned louder. I couldn't tell if it was the wind or the guilt pressing in on us all. I stayed awake. At 2:14 a.m., I heard something move past my door. I followed, through the dark hallways, into the study. The fireplace was out, but the ashes were warm. Someone had just been here. And then I noticed, a corner of the rug was curled up. I pulled it back. A trapdoor. Old. Iron ring. No dust. It led into a narrow stairwell that spiraled into the basement. The walls were rough stone. The air smelled of mildew and old paper. At the bottom, a chamber, lined with candles, extinguished. In the center, a crude wooden altar. More spirals carved into the stone walls. But what chilled me was what lay atop the altar. Bones. Dozens of small animal bones arranged in careful concentric patterns. And on the far wall, scratched in with something sharp, was a phrase. The silence must be fed. I climbed back up. The door creaked. Someone had followed me. It was Voss. He stood at the top of the stairs, holding something. A mask. Wooden. Hand-carved. And shaped like a distorted spiral with no mouth. I suppose you were bound to find it, he said, voice low. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. It's not. It's worse. It's worse, Voss said again, stepping back from the trapdoor as if trying to disappear into the shadows behind him. The mask hung loosely in his hand, fingers twitching. I kept my voice low. Start talking. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he sat on the edge of the stairwell, the mask resting on his knees. I didn't kill Clara, he said, but I knew something was wrong with this place. Before we came, before we even left the mainland, I stayed quiet. I was part of a field project with Calder, years ago. The original excavation on this island. There were ruins here, yes, but not just standing stones. Beneath them, deeper underground, we found a crypt, older than anything recorded in that region. And inside, remains, human, bound, arranged in spirals. The local fishermen warned us not to dig, said the island was cursed, that it was once home to a cult. The hollow spiral, I said. His eyes flicked toward me. You know it? I've crossed its path before. Once. Burned my coat after. You didn't think to mention this to anyone earlier? We all agreed to keep it quiet. Calder was obsessed. Said if word got out, the university would shut it down. We all left, buried the site again, and swore it would stay sealed. Until now. What changed? Calder. He came back months ago, alone. Said he needed to continue the work, that the spiral had spoken to him. He stopped answering emails. Became erratic. Then came this vacation invitation. Voss looked at me, his expression hollow. I think Clara saw something. And I think Calder knew. The wind howled again outside. A shutter slammed against the house. Where is he now? I asked. Voss shook his head. Locked in his study. Hasn't left since this morning. I stood. Stay here. Do not move. The walk back to Calder's study was slow, deliberate. The house felt colder, like something was watching. The door was locked. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. Calder, open the door. Now. Still nothing. I stepped back and rammed my shoulder into it. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the door burst open with a splintering crack. The study was empty. No sign of Calder. No sign of a struggle. But on the desk, a journal. Open to a page scrawled in shaking handwriting. I have seen the spiral. It demands silence, demands sacrifice. The island is waking. The rite is not complete. I turned the page. Drawings, symbols, a map of the island. A path leading past the standing stones, into the forest. Towards something marked only as the mouth. I ran back to the stairwell. Voss was gone. And the mask was gone with him. I found Voss's footprints in the hallway, faint outlines in the dust, heading toward the back door. The wind had picked up again, slamming it open and shut on its hinges like a warning bell. I grabbed my coat and flashlight and followed the trail outside. The forest was pitch black. Even the moonlight seemed hesitant to pass through the trees. But the path was there, narrow, overgrown, barely visible unless you knew where to look. The same one from Calder's map, leading away from the house, past the ruins, deeper into the wild part of the island. I moved fast. Leaves crunched underfoot. Branches clawed at my coat. The trees here were older, taller. They arched overhead like ribbed bones, forming a long, silent tunnel. And then the smell hit me. Iron, dampness, decay. The path opened suddenly into a clearing, and I froze. There it was, the mouth. A gaping sinkhole at least 30 feet wide, ringed by stone markers and stakes carved with spirals. The air around it pulsed with unnatural cold. A sound came from inside, not an echo, not a growl. Something lower, hungrier. I flicked on my flashlight. There were steps, crude, chiseled into the side of the pit, spiraling down. I had no choice. Each step deeper felt like a mistake. The walls were wet and close. Carvings lined the stone, scenes of sacrifice, of figures kneeling before a twisting spiral in the sky. And then, light, candlelight. The pit opened into a chamber, larger than I expected. Bones piled in the corners, ritual markings on the floor. And in the center, Voss, wearing the mask, standing before an altar, whispering words I couldn't understand. And beside him, Calder, kneeling, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut. Literally, thick black thread looped through his lips, dried blood crusted around them. I stepped forward. Voss, whatever you think you're doing, stop. He turned slowly. The mask made him faceless, the spiral twisting where his features should have been. He spoke to me, Voss said quietly. Through Calder, through the silence. The spiral remembers. The island was never abandoned, just sleeping, and we've woken it. He raised a knife. I drew my weapon. Put it down. You don't understand, detective, he whispered. I don't need to. I fired. The shot cracked through the chamber, echoing like thunder. The mask splintered. Voss crumpled. Calder collapsed too, breathing in shallow, raspy gasps. I rushed to him, cutting the thread from his mouth. His first scream echoed through the cave and out into the island night. We weren't safe yet, but we were alive, and for now, that would have to do.